Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of NBL Overtime. We are one game down in the championship series and the Hawkies, apologies Damon, dropped the first one at home. History says that's not a very fun thing to do and it doesn't bode well for you going to the championship. But as we get into the championship series, it's only right to bring in the number one media star in the NBL to join the panel. We shouldn't act surprised there. I'm just calling it like it is. Derek Rucker,
no.
Don't even try, Peter Hooley. Derek, welcome on.
Thanks, Felix. Guys, I don't know what to make of that first game. It was terrific, and it didn't go the way that I thought it was going. But as I've said to you numerous times, Damon, we can never predict how this thing is going to turn out accurately. Now the Hawks are in trouble, I think.
Damon, how'd it feel for you? You've been from the start of the year on the Hawkies bandwagon. I don't want to name names, Peter Hooley, but a lot of people who originally thought the Hawks were going to take it out have now started to switch their opinions. Thus, that's how important those game ones are.
As the unofficial, self-imposed spokesman of the Hawks, we're not happy. Not happy. Totally didn't go the way I thought it would go as well. I thought they was going to get game one. I thought the momentum of that blowout win against Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, everybody was up and about. And the crazy factor, like you say, Derek, but I don't even want to put that game in the crazy factor category because Melbourne United are an institution, they're a brand, and they just find ways to win. Like the pieces they lost last season, to then get right back to the championship series, I mean, it's just incredible. Great job by Dean.
Well, I had the Hawks winning in 5 when we talked about it at the start of the series. And again, it's a tale of two halves. That game will break it all down. And the one thing, the small seed of doubt in my mind about the Hawks leading into it was the lack of experience in the championship series. And that so much compared to the other side. We saw that in the second half, what Melbourne United did with the experienced guys, Golding, Illy, Dellavedova, the poise they played with just to chip away and to find the weaknesses of the Hawks in the moment and come away with a win. That's what a team that's been there and done that can do at a high level, and they did that in the final 20 minutes.
Well, it certainly, as you mentioned, it was a game of two halves, and Melbourne United in that second half, well, they played like a team who had the taste of championship defeat still fresh in their mouth. As we dive into this fourth quarter, that's where Melbourne United won it. 10 down at the half, Pete. Totally different team when they came out in the second.
Well, they stuck with their guns in terms of trying to get Shea Illy and Delhi to be aggressive because they were blanketing Golding and Ian Clark, and they made some timely shots down the stretch. But in the first half, what I loved about the Hawks was they were flowing. Everyone was moving. They were throwing the ball into Sam Froling. We know the success he's had against Melbourne, and they had that kind of swagger about them. The crowd was getting involved, but the question was always going to be, when they're challenged, when Melbourne goes on a run, Melbourne's not going to beat themselves. And you have a look at the tale of two halves here. 3 from 17 threes for the Hawks, who like to take a lot. Kell, Harvey, Lee, they like to take a lot of threes. But they started to really settle because 2 out of 3 free throws is not enough when you're trying to put some heat on the rim. They went small ball as well, which I know you two spoke about in your new debate show that's going very well. Not sure about the small ball. I know it worked for the Perth Wildcats, but as you both said, or one of you said, I don't know which one said it. I'll give you both credit. But they've got elite bigs. That's what you need to go through. You need to keep piling in. Free up Sam Froling, get Days to be more aggressive on the block.
When you talk about experience, Pete, one of the big things that I noticed in that game was Illawarra's inability to match the newfound intensity that Melbourne United brought in the second half. They changed their starting lineup in that second half, okay? And Illawarra didn't respond, whether it's the players, whether it was the coaching, it didn't happen, and that's why you got those numbers. 3 of 17 means you were relying on the 3 ball. You didn't have the awareness to get the ball on the deck and start to penetrate. Then you don't get any free throws. But just understanding as a collective, how do we execute under high, intense pressure?
And you could hear, even from my lounge room, you could hear Justin Tatum saying, don't settle.
Yeah.
You can hear him saying it. So when teams are at their worst, I like to talk about what teams do. What do you revert back to? What is your default when you are at your worst, when you're under pressure? And the Hawks' default, when they're at their worst, there's some casual play from the lead guard, and there's also a heavy reliance on shooting threes. Now, if you put a small ball lineup out there, and Derek, I see you over there smirking already. I can see it. If you put a small ball lineup out there, all three-point shooters, what do you expect is going to happen? Now, I don't know how much time we got for this segment, because we got to talk about leadership. Now, Sam Froling, who I thought he was on his way to having a rock-solid game. He only played like maybe 2.5, 3 minutes max in the fourth quarter. Tyler Harvey and Sam Froling are your leaders, are the captains of the team. I want to see now, game 2, and this series isn't over. It ain't all doom and gloom. But I want to see how they step up and how they respond, because sometimes you got to go somewhere you've never been.
You guys were in the building. Who's the alpha? Trey Kell's the best player. Sam Frolling's outstanding. Tyler Harvey's a very good player. But who's the alpha to grab people and say, hey, yo, this is what we need to do?
It's interesting that you say that, because we've credited the Hawks all year by saying, hey, they've got guys that can step up and move through. It's a different ball game when it comes to a championship. Now, you guys have had a lot of experience. You may not have won a championship, but 2 Game 3s. You played a lot of championship-level basketball. Who is going to step up? Can the Illawarra... You knew I had to send that in there. Can the Illawarra Hawks... Is that worrying you after what you saw in the first game? That what has won them so many games this year, being so sort of level across the board, now they're calling on someone to step up.
And I'll touch on it first because, Pete, you got a championship with a team that had a lot of different leaders, and that struggle was probably knowing when the alpha steps in. But with Illawarra right now, who is that guy? And I think it kind of has to come from Sam Froling, but I'm not sure, A, that he gets enough usage with the basketball, and B, that it's really something he's comfortable with.
I think it's got to be Trey Kell. I think it's got to be the point guard, because on the flip side, you saw what Shea Ili and Matthew Dellavedova did when the Hawks went on a little run, even at the start in the first half, but in the second half, when things get tight, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's try and get some more action to get Chris side to side. Okay, he's taken there. I can see an advantage. I'll try and get Delly off the ball. Jack White can come off the ball for a lob, and they just picked it apart. Where you go back and look at the Hawks, they were forcing a lot. Trey Kell was trying to get downhill. If you think you've got an advantage off just breaking down and making a crossover at the half and you've lost Shea Ili, it does not matter. Shea Ili's getting back in front of you, and if he's not, Jack White's coming and Marcus Lee to wall up. It might look like it's an open, quick shot, but it's probably not going to be the best one at the time.
One of the bigger knocks on Trey Kell, and we've seen it, we saw it in that game too, is when it's not going right for him, sometimes he lets a few things slip on the defensive end. Is that a guy you can trust to be your alpha?
Again, I think it has to be because he's the point guard, and I know that Tyler Harvey's another one to have to set up, but really did have his struggles. We know what Shea Ili and Matthew Dellavedova are. They're the best defensive backcourt in the entire league, and the thing you can't do is just shoot your way out of it. What I said post-game is his poise in the regular season, now that's not a bad shot. We've seen him make that all season, but he played a little quick for my liking than what we normally see. I think he's got the size where he comes off an on-ball, he can pin guys on his back, he gets to his mid-range, and then he really just rises up and picks his moments. I thought he was a little bit chaotic at times, and he's been a yo-yo. When the Hawks have been winning, I think he's averaging 19.7 points per game, just 13.7 in losses. They need him to fire.
Well, based on that stat, next game, game 2, Trey's going to go for 27. Now, I'm going to disagree with you, Pete, because I don't feel like you need to be an alpha if that's not who you are. Like, you can't all of a sudden reinvent your personality right now in a couple of days' time. Trey is who he is. I'm looking at the leadership, and a team winning a championship doesn't have to have an alpha neither. Guys just have to know when to do what, when it needs to be done, say what needs to be said, when it needs to be said is all I'm saying. So right now, it's Sam Frawley, who's also a quiet, reserved kind of a guy. He's a captain. Okay, now, what are you saying in the locker room? We're hearing stories about Chris Golding taking strips off guys at halftime. What are guys saying? They don't have to go at each other and, move furniture around. That's what I would personally do. I'm a furniture mover. But maybe them guys can at least all get together their own kind of way and step up.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting to see, because you're right, there's not a player down that roster where you can picture them going in and, as you say, tearing strips off another person. We've spoken a lot about the things that Illawarra didn't do. In this second half comeback from Melbourne, was it Illawarra losing it for themselves, or was it Melbourne fighting back and just being too good?
I mean, there's certain clips that you look at throughout the whole game that really helped Melbourne get there. And I look through and try and break it all down, but just look at the defense again from the likes of Shea Ili. This is just what Shea Ili does in setting a tone. So the way he fights over it, what are they okay with living with? They're all on the same page. They're continuing to move. Marcus Lee, the activity. This is what they kind of set a tone with and said, okay, this is how we want to play. And look how chaotic this offense turns out to be from the Hawks. Now, again, Sam Froling can make that shot, but what Dean Vickerman is exceptional with is, what are we happy living with? That's what it comes down to. It's what are we happy with living with? We've got the ball out of Trey Kell's hands here, out of Tyler Harvey's hands. Sam Froling made that bucket after that. But are they going to make him have to make a play late shot clock? What are you happy to live with? That's how Melbourne like to play defense. And we saw Marcus Lee guarding Davo Hickey, who was outstanding. His stat line was enormous. But I think Melbourne United is sitting there being like, okay, Davo Hickey nearly had a 20-point triple-double. Are we okay with him trying to beat us than Tyler Harvey and Trey Kell? That's what they're kind of weighing up right now, and it paid off dividends for him.
Well, during critical possessions in the second half, when Hickey either initiated the Hawks offense or was caught in those mismatches, their points per possession went way down. And that's what Dean Vickerman is relying on. Can we lower their averages? Can we bring the usage of certain guys like Trey Kell, whose usage was fine, but in particular Tyler Harvey? He only took 10 shots. And if you can reduce Harvey to 10 shots, you're going to have a really good chance of being in the game and then eventually running away with it.
We spoke about who's going to be the X factor in this series when all goes to, low, you can't use the word on TV, but when it all goes to trash. Marcus Lee, I don't think anybody mentioned Marcus Lee at one of the games of his career in the NBL. Was it a product of just him being good, or was it a product of other guys being guarded very, very tightly?
This is who Marcus Lee is. He's always been like this. He's always been active. One thing he did well was he stayed out of foul trouble. He came off the bench. He only's going to finish, like shots right here. He'll finish all of those. He's been doing it his entire life. He goes to the free throw line. Occasionally, he might give you 1 out of 2. He's going to block shots. I think he got 2 that game. Probably averaged 1.5 of blocks for the season. But that's, you know what you're going to get from Marcus Lee. He's been doing it his whole career.
He plays the percentages, Hools. And it's so simple, but yet it's very effective. As Damon said, he has not really played many bad games, period, over the course of his 3 years. He's got a championship under his belt, and now he has a chance to be a force in this series already because there was a significant matchup problem that we didn't rely on. Froling has to be pulled off the court. And when you pull Sam off the court, who do Illawarra go with that has the experience and the size to match up with Lee?
He's not a player they're rolling the ball to either and saying, hey, go make a one-on-one play. He probably woke up that next morning being like, geez, how good is it being a role player on this Melbourne team? Because the defense was sitting on Chris Golding's lap, which you have to do. You can't let Chris Golding beat you. Ian Clark comes in. We need to sit on Ian Clark's lap. The amount of space that then opened up, as you saw right there, all he's got to do is just finish dump-offs and wall up. And he happens to be the best in the league at walling up and finishing off dump-off passes. He is in a great position right now. They needed him to step up. He did that even when they went to small ball, and everyone was thinking, you've got to pull him out here, play Jack White at the 5, match the small ball. Dean Vickerman, he's got answers for everything. He said, no, I want him to guard Davo Hickey. Let's try and test that. And Davo did a good job in the first half, scoring reverse layups on him, but it took the superstars away from the game for the Hawks. Masterstroke in that regard.
Marcus has shown throughout his career in the NBL that he can be foul prone. But he wasn't put under any pressure like that. So because of this small ball thing, if you stay with Lockie Albrick, I feel like Lockie Albrick, and you could probably remember this, like a David Stiff. Awkward, kind of a up and under, spin over here, off balance, can get shots to go. He's a guy that you just foul. Lockie Albrick can get a rebound, go down in transition, and make Marcus Lee's life way more difficult than Davo Hickey ever can.
Well, the Hawks are going to be the ones to make changes. Before we break it down and tell you what needs to happen, let's hear from Justin Tatum what he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that happens when, once again, the ball gets stuck. And, you stop doing what got you that 10-point lead at half. Like I said, our guys probably disappointed themselves on how they shot the ball and certain individuals played. But at the end of the day, that we get it and we will learn from it and we'll bounce back on Wednesday.
I am wary. The Illawarra Hawks have been remarkably consistent. They've been the best team all year. They lose one game, which they shouldn't have lost at home, that we don't get too knee-jerk reaction. This needs to change. Where's their alpha? It's doom and gloom. They lost one game. They shot terribly in the second half. Are there major wholesale changes that need to be made for the Hawks? Or is this, hey, it's all up here. We dropped game one. Shouldn't have dropped it, but we've got to move on and keep playing Illawarra Hawks basketball?
I think it's getting the rotations right and having the right lineups out there at the right time. And that comes down to Justin Tatum reading the game and reacting quickly. I don't think you can persist. I thought there was too much time given to Davo Hickey in the one-on-one mismatches when it was evident that it wasn't working out. I think he will learn from that, Justin Tatum, and he'll be a lot quicker on the trigger in this game. And I know that you want him to be quick on the trigger if he doesn't see what he wants to see from Trey Kell early. Because
it's a 5-game series. It might not go 5 the way it's going right now. And like every game is going to be its own movie. Something's going to happen in game 2, and we're going to come back here and talk about what should have happened. I get that. But from your stars, from your superstars, there needs to be a level of consistency. Now, Trey doesn't have to get a 30-point triple-double, but he cannot drop a 6. And then what happens is his offensive game, if it's struggling, it affects his defensive game. Now, the Hawks ain't never been known as a great defensive team, but they can play way much better defense than that.
If you go back and watch the way they were defending, especially where they can improve on, because of the way that they got, like Wani, I thought did a very good job on Chris Golding because he refuses to get screened. He sits on his back. But a couple of those possessions, because he's sitting right in the corner, Chris has done this for a very long time. If he understands you're on him like a blanket, he takes himself out of it, and Delly and Shea just got to the rim at will. Justin Tatum said in the press conference, I need my guards to be better at staying in front of Shea and Matthew Dellavedova. There's a reason Delly took 6 shots in the first 2 minutes, because that's what the defense was giving him. So I think they'll take more pride in that one-on-one. Guys like Tyler Harvey when they check in, David Hickey when they check in, Tyler Harvey, of staying in front of the other role-playing offensive guards. But the other side of it is, okay, if I need Wani then to actually play proper help side, but then you're leaving Chris Golding with an extra split second, which you can't do that either.
Do you think they want to live with Delly shooting threes?
For sure. This is what I'm talking about. You have to live with something. Melbourne choose to live with certain things and it worked for them. The other side of it is if you don't live with that, you let Chris Golding potentially shoot another. He's hit 19 threes the last 2 games of John Cain Arena. So if you switch
at a
that
ridiculous
up,
percentage.
If you switch that up, you're probably in trouble there too. And you know he's a game breaker the way he does it. So I think that's the right way to do it. It's basically what Justin Tatum said. Tyler Harvey, Dave O'Hickey, whoever comes in, Lee, you need to take pride in your one-on-one defense and keep Shea, Illy, and Delly out of the paint.
The problem, though, is that Illy and Dellavedova have a lot of confidence now handling the ball. And one of the things you want to try and do, people often think confidence is all about shooting. No, confidence applies to ball handling, passing. You can be fumbly with the basketball. Those guys are really confident now. And coming back into John Cain after having a great game with putting it on the deck and distributing the ball, like those are real danger signs. And Illawarra have to do a better job on the perimeter of keeping the ball in front of them.
And just quickly, we've got to give some love to Tanner Krebs.
Yeah.
Tanner Krebs in both series has come in when it looks like in the Perth Game 3, it looked like it was about to be 15 points at quarter time. Same here, and hit timely threes, timely shots. His minutes have been sporadic. To stay ready for your moment like that, Tanner Krebs has been awesome for Melbourne United.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. We've been around this industry for a long time. Illawarra are going to win game 2, and we're going to be talking about this same stuff, saying Melbourne United are dead buried, and they're going to change it all up. I'll end this with, hey, if you're an Illawarra Hawks fan, just remember, you laid an egg game 1. It's a 5-game series for a reason. The last 2 years, the team that has dropped the first game, let's not worry about the 8 years before that, but the last 2 years, that team has gone on to win the championship. So it is not all doom and gloom for the Hawkies. But let's get into it. Ain't no cupcake league. Rest in peace to our good mate Corey Homicide Williams, who would have been loving the NBL final series the way it's gone so far. But I'll kick this one off. Now, there are different levels to fashion that people can come. Now, let me just explain the extremes in the polls. You got Leonard Copeland, one of the best looking guys, one of the slickest guys you will come across. He likes to wear, as we bring the photo up, the nice suits, the loafers. And look at that beautiful little loafer things he's got going on there. For some reason he decided, but right next to him, you got old P. Hooley just rocking the white, what I would consider almost Junners at this point, Pete. Come on, man. You can't be sitting next to Leonard and my beat-up RMs rocking those.
Are those Dunlops? What are they?
They're Stan Smiths.
Are they?
No, they're Stan Smiths. And, well, I know why you two are dressed like that, because you planned, hey, it was a Saturday night, we're driving back to Sydney. That's the only reason you two dress like that, because there was no stopping at the hotel on the way back. We were heading straight
Who
out.
was the only person to not have a sip of something on the way home? Me. Thank you.
For my cupcake, again, well, we were going down Copes. Now, we've been on the road a lot together, us two. We've been on the road with Copes, doing a lot of pre-games. We're on each other's nerves. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully it's being received well. We've had a lot of photos taken. We like to produce it, promote them. Coast put this up. Look at the bottom. It says, want us to collab with that. I'm not sure what you guys mean and understand what collab means. It shows on everything. But this picture here was taken on a potato.
You can't even see how bad it is on that photo.
The worst pixelation I've ever seen. And he had the nerve to say to us both, hey, accept my collaboration.
Also, Pete, that wasn't even as bad, because the original one that he tried to collaborate with us, I was looking the other way and Pete was looking down and Leonard was looking direct smack down the middle of the camera. So he's still working out the Instagram stuff.
Copes, he needs a social media manager. That's the bottom line. And who's your boy Felix, right? We understand he's very popular when we go from venue to venue. Very popular. He brings great energy. He's a pretty good-looking dude. But come on. This dude signing jerseys?
Hang on.
What? And look how serious and professional he's trying to act, too. Kids, eat all your vegetables. Go to bed at the right time. This dude trying to act like a school teacher. Get off the court, bro.
Whose other signature is that? Why are you signing that poor guy? That's worthless.
It was a real just put the fries in the bag, bro. Just put the fries in the bag. You know, the worst thing is, these kids come up and I've got to get out of the conversation before they start asking me who I played for or how long I played. And I've also got to sign it with a number on the jersey, so I just whacked 95 on there.
Maybe they're Melbourne Tiger NBL 1 supporters. Who knows? Who knows?
Hey, look, devaluing merchandise.
We're going with, it's the off season, right? So, you know, a lot of the teams who didn't make it, now they got to figure out what went wrong, what should we be doing? So Adelaide 36ers took it upon themselves to ask the fans, what do you guys reckon? Fan satisfaction survey. Are we serious? I got a suggestion for you. I got a suggestion for you, Adelaide 36ers. Get somebody to produce a reality TV show. Call it the Adelaide 36ers. It'll rate off the charts.
Oh, God. That is like sending out a survey to turkeys asking whether they like Thanksgiving or not. That is just something you don't do. Tell you, mate, is it still open? Can we still vote on that? I've got a couple of words I'd like to add in. Break coming up. Plenty more coming up after the break. Welcome back to NBL Overtime, all thanks to basketball.com.au. Many people, legends included, supporters, fans saying that Game 3 of the Perth-Melbourne series was the greatest game of NBL basketball. And Derek Rucker, judging by the greys in that beard, you've been around a lot longer than us. Can you back that statement up? Perth come up short by the absolute barest of margins.
Terrific basketball game. You can't even mention everything about it in this short period of time that we have, but the shot making, the talent on display, and the fact that so many of the star players brought their A game. And the coaching maneuvers throughout the game I thought were fantastic also. It was a shame that it was only a 3-game series. That deserved 5 games because if you're Perth right now, are you really any worse than Melbourne United? Like, it's so hard to separate the two teams. And although I feel we got the rightful and deserved team in the championship series in Melbourne United, Perth could feel a bit sick to their stomach.
Before we break down that game, on that point, should we be heading sooner rather than later to a 5-game semi-final series?
100%.
I think in a 3-game semi-final series, a team could get unlucky and not progress. I think in a 5-game series, it's enough games that the best team will eventually get through if they play to their best in a minimum of 3 games. So I think we're getting there sooner rather than later.
I'm happy with it. You know, best of 5, more basketball for us. I'm cool with it. But as far as Game 3 being the greatest game of all time,
here we go. You just want to go back to your game. No one's thinking about that now.
I'll say
Dude,
no.
It was 3 free throws.
This fourth quarter, though, was it was just a basketball masterpiece. And you know what? It helps when two teams, when styles make the fights.
Are you going to gloss over that? You're not going to talk about that?
I'm saying this game had everything. Trading buckets, big stars making big shots. It had its little bit of drama towards the end, but these two teams matched up better than what I thought. Every time they get together, there's always some type of a classic. Those open air games always go down to the wire. We've seen these two teams play overtime with each other before. I was kind of hoping this one would go OT, but definitely a classic.
It was so fun to watch. As you said, the shot-making ruck was just exceptional. And it's not like there was no defense being played. They were being physical, up and in. Kristian Doolittle put together a performance for the ages for the Perth Wildcats. You talk about being unguardable. That man was knocking down the 3 at a high rate and then just using his size, saying, I'm just going to get to wherever I want. Delhi, you're going to use your physicality? No worries, I'll rise up. In the second half, he just continued to get deep in the paint, rise up and say, you know what, let me have a career night.
Doolittle his trajectory in the NBL was at one point a good defensive stopper, a bit of a role player, just a side piece. By the end of it, by Game 3, now admittedly he was left open a fair amount when they were doubling cotton on these, but you still got to hit the shots. He turned into a superstar, was on easily the same level as Keanu Pinder, if not better, towards the end of this year.
Well, you look at the stroke, and there's no doubt that we notice that he's a developing offensive player. He's only young. He's 27 years old. He's really not even hit his prime yet. But for Perth, and I think this is what you're getting at, Felix, you got to go get that guy. He's so unique. He's physically strong. He's athletic. And the skills continue to evolve.
Every time we see a 4-man import in the league, they tend to do very well. We saw Anthony Lamb come out here and get buckets. Zylan Cheatham to probably a lesser degree that 4 spot, but he could get buckets. Right now, Kristian Doolittle does not have a matchup. There's not that Australian 4-man that can lock that man up. And Kristian
Xavier
Doolittle
Cook says hello to you.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Xavier Cook, hey, look, of course, another 4-man. Now, Kristian Doolittle is the reason why I have the new rule, the Kristian Doolittle rule, I call it. Because his first season, he got off to such a slow start, I was thinking, did they get the right guy? And slowly but surely, he started playing. I'm thinking, okay, this is what Johnny really saw in this guy, because he got off to a shaky start.
Where's the
What's
rule?
the rule?
It's the Kristian Doolittle rule. Be patient. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're still developing it?
Be patient. We can't, when imports come out here, we got to give them more than 3 to 4 games before we say give them a
That's not a
plaintiff.
rule, though.
If I said it's a rule, it's my rule. You want your own rule, you make up your own
It's
rule.
more a philosophy.
If that was the case, we'd have no show, man. If we can't go at imports for playing back, then we got no show. We got no rundown there.
To try and bring this back. No, I think he's he's one of the most dangerous prospects if they can bring him back next season. Because now, as you said, he understands there's no one who really can stay in front of me physicality-wise. I don't understand my spots. Remember, when he came to Perth, he was the Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He came in, this guy's a defensive beast. No one really understood the offense, neither even himself, when he came across, when everything that transpired in his previous club. So he came in here, I need to find my role. I'm playing alongside one of the greatest of all time in Bryce Cotton. Where do I fit? And he had that groin injury this season, and you could see a switch just flicked and said, hang on, I've got some offensive buckets to hand out myself. Once he flicked that, he became a beast, and that can be very, very dangerous. If they lock him in for next year, you're starting to pencil that guy in for an all-NBL team because he's unguardable when he gets to his spots. He's really patient, and the physicality is largely unmatched in that position.
Pete, we see this happen often in professional basketball. There's an element of doubt in a player, but once they start achieving, and sometimes it can be 1 game, it can be 2 weeks, it can be a month. This is who Doolittle is now. Make no mistake about it. He's not regressing. This guy, as you say, is at a minimum with average performance, a second-team all-NBL guy.
There's been a lot of talk around contracts, and it hasn't been under Doolittle's name. How important is Doolittle to this Perth Wildcats team? I'm saying very, very important. I think everyone will agree with me.
I think that you would probably go as far to say, like, Kristian Doolittle, the contract, that might be a little bit more important than Bryce Cotton.
Oh,
yeah.
stop.
You know what?
No, the way Felix
I appreciate you segueing that, Pete, because I'm saying with the amount of money you pay Cotton, and Cotton is like right now he's the best player in the league, arguably the greatest player we've seen in the NBL. But this could be the last time we ever saw him in a Wildcats jersey, at least for the foreseeable future. But with the money you are paying Bryce Cotton, you could potentially get 2 superstar-level imports.
Well, it's a function of how deep you're willing to go into your wallet. If you're happy to do whatever it takes to get Cotton and you're not worried about going over the top, then it's not an issue. And Bryce still remains the most important and the most significant signing on whatever price he is. But however, I see your point. If you're looking for a value proposition, then Doolittle certainly becomes most important.
Yeah, Doolittle's got to be #1 priority because it's up to Bryce. Bryce, you cannot let one guy hold your whole organization hostage.
He's not holding them hostage. He's just trying to get what he deserves.
I'm happy he can go off in the offseason and do his own thing. But Kristian Doolittle is a stable stability guy at that position, at that 4 spot, because Keanu Pender might not be wearing red next season. I'm just going to put that out there. But Kristian Doolittle is that import that you can lock up that can be like a Melvin Thomas type that can play like 10 seasons for the same club.
I want to bring something up here, and let me know whether I'm reading too deeply into this, and maybe I'm just too entrenched in the whole Will Cotton sign or not stuff. But the Perth Wildcats sent out a little membership graphic. Now, you have a look at over there. We'll give the baby a pass. That's not a player. The guy holding the baby, I assume that's the father. Right there. You got 3 players. Keanu Pender, he's up for contract. He's on the graphic. Doolittle, he might not be there. Wagstaff, he might retire. We just don't know. Where is Bryce Cotton, the face of your franchise, on the membership renewal period photo? That worries me.
Well, it's an interesting one because you see from a Wildcats perspective is you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you put him on there, and some people are like, this is a great sign, Bryce is coming back, and he doesn't, you're going to cop a lot of flack for that. The other side of it is if you don't, then people are talking about it as they are. And we knew you would be all over
If Bryce was on that photo, I'm doing the exact same skit there, and I'm saying he's signing and he's locked in. So I can 100% understand what you're saying there. But I do think it's interesting that they went without him there. Let's have a look at the total Perth roster situation at the moment, because for me, it's the most enticing place to play in the NBL. When you look at the fans, you look at the city, there's no better place in the NBL to play for the Perth Wildcats. Pete Hawley, biggest moves, biggest keeps. What's going on?
I mean, as we said, I think the Doolittle signature is super important. If they can get that done, they've got a really good basis to build off. Elijah Pepper, club option, Aquera Mutual, Dante Russo-Nance, really, and El Manza, who's going to be declaring for the draft. They're the guys who have locked in for next year. There's a lot of guys who are out of contract.
That's a worrying list of only contracted, if you mind. There's going to be a big off-season for the Wildcats.
And
they're not afraid to spend, though. Like, they're going to go out there and get that talent.
But the problem is the players and the agents know that as well.
Well, one of the things is Doolittle can't necessarily be your most important because of the timeline. He's not a local guy. He is going to play out his options internationally and see what presents. I don't see why he would be in any rush to put pen to paper unless the money is crazy.
Dylan Windler, I'm bringing him back to 100%. So them two imports, again, we talk about stability, and you always bring up, Felix, the retention.
Yep.
If you can get two guys to get used to playing together for multiple seasons, Dylan Windler's already showed us he can play both ends of the floor, defensive player and a sniper with Doolittle. Now that import guard spot that you got a whole bunch of money freed up just in case Bryce decides, because it's his decision, to not play, you got yourself still a three-headed import monster that you need if you're going to try to win a championship.
That second season that imports usually play, you're talking about Dylan Windler, he could be set for a really big year next year because he understands the league now. He understands the way it's officiated, the way that it plays. He started to have a lot of success. So I would really be looking at to bring him back. He's a unique prospect. He finally got healthy and he became a dominant force.
Let me ask you a question, Pete.
Please, that's what we're here for.
Let's say Cotton isn't ready to make a move.
He said it'll be a month, Colin.
And Windler and Doolittle are ready to make moves. Do you start reaching out to other guards?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think, if the other two are, I don't necessarily think you have to rush that because, as we said, if Bryce Cotton doesn't come back, the amount of money they could then be willing to spend, you can go out there and potentially have your pick of the lot. Say all these key fringe NBA guys, other free guys around the market, I think you'd be able to have a really big swing at that. And if you've already got two, the best thing about if Doolittle and Windler are they complementary pieces who can also be dominant pieces. It doesn't matter who you put alongside guys like that because they'll just adapt to their surroundings and they'll thrive.
I'm not only gonna, I'm gonna, with all due respect to Bryce, you can't take all day, man. So go off and play in Puerto Rico, go off and get your pesos, that's cool. But we need a date because you can't, like I said, cannot be held hostage. Also, I need to look up that second guard spot because young Benny Hinchell, he might be on the move.
Well, there's a lot of money coming up for a lot of players, but there is a certain cap on the amount of money that you can spend on a player in the NBL before it starts to get, hey, we're sacrificing the rest of our roster for this. And Bryce Cotton is so damn good that he might just be surpassing that level at the moment. It's going to be very interesting. We've got a break coming up, plenty more up next. Welcome back to NBL Overtime. There was a second team that fell short in the playoffs, and they didn't just fall short, they fell entirely off a cliff in Wollongong. The South East Melbourne Phoenix, who started the season 0-5, well, their season, you could pretty much call it was 0-5 in one game, the way that it ended, getting absolutely shellacked at the hands of the Illawarra Hawks.
Well, it came down to Matt Hurt, and when he didn't function that series, they were cooked. And Illawarra did a number on him in Game 3. They never really were in the game, and the horses that Illawarra have that can get up and down the court, it was just too much for Southeast Melbourne. And I thought, though, that this was a good matchup for the Phoenix, but this is why you go out there and play, Dane, because you get out there between those lines, and the Hawks just ran them over in Game 3. They were too inspired, and I thought they played very intelligent basketball as well.
Yeah, you know that one game you have during the season that you just have to just flush it down the toilet? It just so happens to be, it was for them Game 3 of the semifinals. So I think on a whole, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix season was a success. I think they got rid of some pieces, they added some stability, and now things are on the up with those guys. To go from 0-5 to go in one game within making a championship series, that is a success. So now in the offseason, what they got to do is they got to get taller. And right now they are too small. Matt Hurt found out the league, and he had his worst game at the wrong time, but he is clearly a bucket and a guy that you want to hopefully keep around for a long time.
Well, Josh King recapped it all. We'll quickly just have a look at what Josh King had to say to recap the season.
I mean, I like the way they play. They've got physical guys. I think that was part of it. We struggled with the physicality in this series. We really did, especially tonight. And that's what I mean. He gets his guys to play really, really hard. That's the secret sauce, right? That's what I mean. They play hard. They play tough. They play physical. I just like his team.
He's right, and he talks about the Hawks. I mean, look at the rebounding numbers, especially in Game 3 plus 17. But this is the beautiful part of a playoff series. It doesn't matter. It's not a one-game play, and if you get hot, you're feeling good. But the emotions, being tense in the moment, that first quarter where the Hawks shot the lights out. That was one of the best shooting performances we've seen from a team. Todd Blanchard was enormous, but everyone was chiming in, and the damn wall burst for the Phoenix. You could see mentally they started taking quick shots, saying, oh, geez, you've just hit 2 threes in a row. I'm going to come down and take a quick 3-ball. You can't do that, but that's what happens. That's the beauty of playoff basketball, that you have to stay mentally composed, and the lack of experience at the time clearly showed. But take nothing away from the Hawks. They were exceptional. I think for the Phoenix, you're right. That was a successful season. To go from the bottom, the absolute pits of it all, to 1 game away from a championship series, unbelievable turnaround.
In evaluating this season, though, and looking ahead, I'm going to go back to that Adelaide game, though, because there were some concerns there where they got down 19. And I need to see why that happened, because that's the type of team that in order for them to be in the top 4 next year, to be in the top 2, they can't be messing around with a team like Adelaide, who is a play-in, struggling, marginal team. You want to pounce those teams. And they were in a dangerous position where they almost didn't get to the playoff series.
I sit in 2 camps with this team for this season, and as much as I joke off the top about that final game and falling off a cliff, it was a terrible way to end, and it did sour somewhat the year. But in one camp, you spent the money on this team to win a championship. This was not a cheap roster by any stretch. And on the other hand, Damon, you've got Josh King, who's come in at the shortest of notice to be able to coach this team, and they've made it all the way to what could be the eventual champions and fallen to the last hurdle in what was, you used the great term, the damn wall broke. It was an emotional season, and you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't work, and in that game, it just did not work for him.
And that's what I'm saying. Josh King now is going to have a full season, a la Justin Tatum last year, who came in halfway through the season to really get his stamp on that team. Josh King's going to do the exact same thing next year. Josh King's going to look at this roster and go, which one of you guys, with the exception of Owen Foxwell, is my kind of guy? He's going to go out and recruit the guys he needs. Justin Tatum only had to recruit 1 spot, the Gary Clark spot. Josh King might recruit a few more spots. We're going to see, but I'm going to put a lot of faith in Josh.
And the thing is, the most important, in a league where teams play each other 4 or 5 times throughout a year, the most important position on the court is the coach. And they've got a great coach in Josh King. So that's what I'm really excited for. And that contracted group, when you look at what Perth has to deal with this offseason, that is a whole lot of good talent they've still got in that contracted group.
I like it. And what they have coming back is a nice core. The out-of-contract manholes, there's some tough decisions there, with particular Derek Walton Jr., Ben Ayre, Kenyon, and Wieskamp. I find those really challenging choices. I like all those guys. I see merit in each of them, but they can't all obviously hang around.
No, they can't. I'm very excited to see what Josh King does recruiting-wise. Now he gets to say of the types of players he wants. I think he's an exceptional coach, one of the best coaches in the league. Those out-of-contract names, I could see a couple of them coming back. I know they want to bring back Matt Hurt. You could see that. You could probably make the case for Wieskamp if he's your 3rd import. But I could also see none of those out-of-contract guys coming back. If Josh King goes out there and said, you know what, this is the puzzle piece I need to put all together and just go fresh with the contracted players they have. So they've got a bunch to work with, and I'm excited to see how them get straight into it.
I could see every one of those guys coming back because, again, Josh has only had them for a little while. That team, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, are 1 player away. And you can get that. It's a local guy. You can run back. Derek Walton's hamstrings betrayed him. Joe Wieskamp took a while to figure it out. Matt Hurtwill can improve on the defensive end and rebound and some other things. You get Keanu Pender. You get some type of local 4 who's got some mongrel, who's got some aggression. Put him with that group, we're talking about a different team.
Chef Lowry, have a look at the menu that I prepared earlier of notable key local free agents that we could potentially look at this. The key local targets that you want to go for. Now, some of these guys are contracted overseas, but we know what we've learned in basketball. Luka Doncic, the contracts are worth nothing. You can go anywhere if you want to. Now, there is some big names that we would love to see back in the league. Pete, who do you think is the most important to go somewhere on that list?
Well, I mean, Yanni Wetzel's flagged that he's potentially interested in coming back, but Brock Modem, there was a piece on basketball.com.au recently this week, said that he's been open for the last couple of years about thinking to return. If he was, ideally he would hope that's his home, which is Brisbane Bullets. But again, think about a Brock Modem sliding into the power forward spot for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. He's only 34, playing exceptionally well.
I think when I look at that list, I really like JLA. And I would love to see JLA perhaps get a shot if there's movement, like Damon suggests, out in Perth. I think he would be a perfect person to slot in there. They need a little bit more offensive punch. His length, he is a very underrated player on the defensive end. However, Hools, if I was to coach by chance, and I wanted to go out there and get myself a guy, I'm getting Dellavedova. I'm going out and getting Delly. He's going to be my leader. He's going to drive it, give him the keys, and be like, Delly, help me win games.
Wow. If you're coaching, when's your next meeting? Look, I'm looking at Sam Wardenberg. Now, Cairns, Adam Ford is no longer coaching there, so now we're going to see Sam probably test the water. I'd like to see him go home, reunite with your old mate Sam Meninga, and go back to New Zealand and put those two bigs back together, because who knows what's going to happen. They've already lost Dane Pinto to retirement. Jonah Bolden, we don't know what's happening with Jonah. And obviously we don't know what's happening with the import center spot. But if you get those two guys, your front court is set for the next who knows.
I'm dangerously agreeing with too much of you saying today. And I think the biggest thing for New Zealand, with whoever they're approaching, local talent. You know what, New Zealand, when they were at their best, local talent. You go to a New Zealand Breakers game, I was lucky enough to be able to go to one during the year, and you got Dylan Boucher, you got Abercrombie, all these superstars that won a whole lot of championships, still entrenched in the community. More of that, the better. So let's have a look at the imports as well, because this is where it starts to get exciting. These are the game changers. These are the ones that get paid a whole heap of cash. Now, if you're looking for a defender, there ain't many on that list, but offensively, there's some real powerhouses right here.
We'll take Bryce Cotton's name off it because we all spoke about it, and it'll come down to his decision what he wants to do, and understandably so. I'm fascinated to see what happens with Jalen Adams. I think Jalen Adams, he went to test the waters after he won a championship and an MVP with the Kings. I just feel like he's found a bit of a home in Australia. Whether that's in the Kings, I'm not sure, but I think Jalen Adams is going to stay around in the NBL. I hope so anyway, because I think he's a fantastic talent.
I'm looking at my guy, PJC, and I'm trying to decide where he goes. And I think there's a perfect match for him in Queensland. Not with Cairns, the Brisbane Bullets. They need a dynamic point guard. They need someone who's a star, who's got some flash, who's got charisma. And also, if you look at the import triumvirate of PJC, Bateman at over 50% from the three, and Casey Prather, who you vastly underestimate coming into this season, you've got three really good guys.
Head of recruitment for the Bullets?
Hey, you asked me to do the segment.
Yeah.
I'm doing the segment.
So you realise you just referred to Brisbane as we when you said that.
So you don't like Kendrick Cook in that mix?
I just think someone's got to miss out if you're trying to elevate the performance of the team with PJC. Keandre Cook, unfortunately, is the one that misses out. He can find a job with another team in the league.
Okay. Now, you guys talk about vastly underrating. You're underrating the little big man society. I'm looking at, I have no president, because I don't like what's going on in Tasmania. I feel like they just letting Jordan Crawford. They would not have that one championship without that man.
Yep.
What did he do in his first game overseas? Damn near got 50. Jordan Crawford.
What league was that?
I don't know which one it was.
Mitch Creek
it was one of them.
Yeah, it was Puerto Rican, wasn't it?
I forget which one it was. Anyway, Jordan needs to be back right here. Jordan Crawford, Cairns Taipans. Ooh. Because the Cairns Taipans guard, Taron Armstrong, he's in the association. So there's a massive hole there for the president.
I feel that because I would like to see Crawford unleashed and let him do his thing, because we saw glimpses of it in Tasmania, but understand that he was in a very strong structure. But let's see what he could do when he was allowed to hoop a little bit.
I'm with you. That is a defensive-based team over there at Tassie. Release the shackles, get him over to Cairns, and let's see what happens. Break. We're all here thanks to basketball.com.au. We'll see you in a moment.
Atmosphere is electric. Slamming it home. CJ says, I don't need it. Gets it. He's having a good time out here. What? Are you kidding me right now? So he comes up big. That is pretty incredible. Yeah. How can you not love that? Wow. Golding with space. This time explores inside. Off the window. Ray. Yes. What? He is that guy!
The NBA is finally coming to town. They've asked for it for a long time. The 3rd and the 5th of October, the Pelicans are heading down to take on Southeast Melbourne Phoenix and Melbourne United. Apparently, It's all in the works as well. Going to host a mini camp here as well, which puts to rest any doubts when people think, hey, they're going to bring the G League team or a little lesser. If you're running a mini camp, you are bringing the whole squad out here. We're here all thanks to basketball.com.au. If you want to stay up to date, check out that website. If you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening, Pelicans versus the NBL teams.
Yeah, they're going to bring out everybody, families included. When you come across the other side of the world, it's good to have that long period here, not just play 2 games. And also, depending on who's on the roster, whoever's there, if you think the Pelicans want to be the first NBA team to come to Australia and lose, they do not want that. They are not going to be doing that. They're going to come in here. We've seen the LA 36ers beat the Phoenix Suns. They want to come here and showcase what the best talent in the world can do. So whoever's on that roster, if it's Zion, CJ McCollum, you don't think they're going to play a little bit? They're going to care a whole lot because you do not want to come to Australia, be part of history, and then lose because we're going to have some talented teams on the other side.
This is massive. Kudos, Vince Crivelli, who else helped organize this? Larry Kesselman. Larry he has something to do with it. Awesome job bringing over the Pelicans, because when they come over here, like we talk about going to the world. Like, yes, you had teams go over there and play. No, come to our backyard. Come to our hood. And I got an idea, too, for halftime entertainment since New Orleans is coming. Lil Wayne concert at halftime. Derek?
Yeah, I'm with
Lil
you.
Wayne,
Go ahead.
No, New Orleans do. So anyway, I like it.
Okay, well, we officially won't be having a season next year because we had to fly Lil Wayne out to play along with the entourage. So unfortunately, let's have a look at David Griffin, the Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, whether maybe he said they're bringing out Lil Wayne as well.
We're going to try to be here prior to the games for a good portion of our training camp. Our full roster will be attendance. These games will be really meaningful to us with everybody on our roster, and I know the NBL is going to stock those 2 teams as well as they can to create a very competitive environment.
I will just say during that video, watching the background, our man Dave Anderson, who's known for fashion, just making sure he lifts the shirt up so you can show the Louis Vuitton belt about 3 times in the background. But let's check basketball.com.au to see what's making headlines around the league and around the basketball world at the moment. Bogut's big call. Well, I'll tell you what, he's probably got a few more of them to make as well. And the Pelicans swoop into Melbourne, as we just said, CG40 to tip off, CG43, Brock Modem, as you mentioned. It's almost like you're writing for this website, Pete, the way they're stealing all your stories there as well. But one of the big stories coming out of everything is Ice Cube and the Big 3 coming to town. Now, I have said the FIBA break is the worst thing on earth to ever happen to Australian basketball, and I still stand by that, but at least...
Hang on, your debut's up there.
It certainly was as well, but you know what? It birthed us into commentary, so maybe it wasn't that bad. Actually, maybe it was that bad. Maybe if I hit those shots, you would have been spared me. But the Big 3 coming to town, this is what I'm incredibly excited about, because these are still huge names, fresh out of the game, and it's actually, for those who haven't watched it, is incredibly entertaining to watch.
Well, we saw ISO Joe Johnson, go back to the NBA from his Big 3 performances, and we're really looking forward to this. Ice Cube obviously is an innovator. He is a rap mogul and a guy who has taken his entrepreneurial skills to the next level and brought it to basketball. This is huge, especially for guys like us, Damon, who grew up with Cube and NWA. But look at that.
Yeah, star-studded. What if Ice Cube and Lil Wayne got together and did a promo video? That'd be crazy.
We're not doing that. That's not the theme of what we're trying to do here. But I like your idea.
Anytime I see you guys like us, I thought you were going down like a height challenge route. But it was nice for you to talk about the
pools.
Speaking of 3x3, big congratulations to this man right here. Obviously reappointed for the 3x3 for the women's team. Well done, sir. I'm very impressed. Adam Ford is going to be coaching on the men's side for this interim.
Can I just interrupt? What is a gangaroo as well?
Kangaroo is the original name of the kangaroo. Yes.
You could have done that after the show.
Yep.
Speaking of the Cairns Taipans, though, there's a couple of names in this coaching search I've been hearing a lot lately. Obviously, Kerry Williams is the main one, the assistant coach there. Robbie McKinlay has popped up a little bit. And a name that I'm hearing more and more now is Brendan Joyce.
A close personal friend.
Who seems to... You're on camera. You're on camera here, Damon.
Brendan Joyce is someone who you look up to. I'm sure you have some insight to provide here.
We're live.
Silence speaks volumes.
We're live.
Those that tell don't know. Those that know don't tell.
Is that your rule as well?
Rule number 2.
Okay.
Well, that would be interesting, though, because it's really hard, given the competitive nature of the NBL, for coaches to get back in once you've kind of advanced past a certain age. And Brendan has been one of the best coaches we've ever had in the league from a tactical point of view. He's a strong motivator. And were it not for Brendan Joyce, trust me, this guy would not be sitting right here now.
Hey, Brendan's 2-time NBL Coach of the Year, champion. head coach of the Opals, assistant coach of the Boomers. I'm actually shocked he didn't even get an interview for the Boomers job, but whatever, we move on. But we talk about coaches being aging out. It's no, like you go overseas, there's guys coaching countries, Spain, France, in their 70s. Brian Gorgon right here in his 70s coaching. We too quick to go with the young guy, and I get that too, that's cool too. But a guy like Brendan Joyce, with all he's done, there's no way he should be out not coaching.
Brock was nearly going to coach the Bullets. You're how old?
58, Pete.
If you could be president of the United States.
You're looking phenomenal too, my man.
If you could be president of the United States at around about 80-something, I think you can coach a basketball team. So I think the United States has proved that age means absolutely nothing at this point. But the trend is your friend. Let's have a look where we're going. And the age-old game of, are they continuing to mess with the video, Pete? You keep a keen eye on it.
No, that was a good one.
That was a good one. That was a little bit shorter there. Let's have a look at the trend for this one. And we're going championship-themed, of course. 8 of the last 10 championships. Series, 5 games. Well, you have a look at this all the way back there, even when we went back to just the 3 games, it has been the team that wins the first game has gone on to win the championship. But the dangerous thing, and I will add this in, the previous 2 years, you look at that, it bucks the trend. I was really hoping this one went the absolute whole way through. How much are we reading into this one with Melbourne United winning that first game? Do you expect the trend of the last 2 years to continue? Or do you think this one's going to continue the other 8?
Well, last year Melbourne won as the top seed on home floor, and then we know what the Jack Jumpers did. I think it's a little different now because they stole home court advantage. I still have some faith in the Illawarra Hawks. You're not the best team in the league all season for no reason. I still think they can come together and produce a fight here.
Sydney Kings coming from behind, knocking off Modi Mayor and the Breakers. That was, that was a tough series. Went down to the wire. Look, this trend, anything can happen, man. So I can't call it. Hawks in 5.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. And like you say, you lose home court advantage, and right now I think it's a mental game. Who can recover from the Hawks and lift themselves out of the malaise that I'm sure they're feeling? We've all been there. We've lost big games before. You feel sick. And I've told you before, the only thing worse than losing games like this is getting dumped by your girlfriend.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what, perfect use of the word malaise, my man. 2 for 2. 2 for 2. There we go. Break time. A little bit more coming up.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Welcome back to NBL Overtime. Tomorrow night game at 2. Can the Hawks bounce back? In one word, 7:30, 7 p.m. on air. How are you describing the game tomorrow?
I'm excited.
I knew I'd do it. I knew I'd do it.
Must watch.
That's
It's a hyphen in between.
Bombastic.
We're out. I'm never coming back.